Just Be a Man. Each podcast, we offer commentary from a man's perspective on a range of meaningful topics, such as our world, family, relationships, sex, and much, much more. Our purpose is to impart wisdom to our audience through meaningful and transparent conversation. This program is hosted by 5 brothers from other mothers who have been friends for over 30 years and collectively have over 250 years of experience.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Just Be a Man podcast, where we offer commentary from a man's perspective. Tonight's panel consists of yours truly, Charles, along with my brothers from other mothers. We have Chuck, Mike, and Wayne. Also, shout out to our brother Stefan, who couldn't be here this evening. Hopefully, he's out there working on his golf game for that beatdown that he's about to take this coming Wednesday. But we will not digress. Let's talk about tonight's topic, guys, which is the emasculation of the male in today's society.
Stop it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, this is going to be a very good discussion, I hope. Now, I have read 2 recent definitions of emasculation. Let me offer those up to you guys, and then we'll jump right in. Metaphorically, emasculation refers to the removal of a male ego, pride, empowerment, making a man subservient, weak, or in a feminine role. Another definition is that a man is deprived of his male role or identity, particularly in a family situation. Now, some say it's a problem. Some disagree with that. So let's jump right in. What say you, Wayne? What do you think?
Hey, I like this topic, Charles. So this is crazy, right? So first, I just want to say I think that having men talk about this topic is really important. I don't want it to look like we're complaining or whining or whatever, but this is something that's really real in the community, not in the community, in the country, all around. So I think that, in a lot of relationships, I think as you get older, dudes, you decide to choose your battles or choose your fights, right? And so I think that sometimes when you fall back, when you get into a heated discussion or whatever, and you kind of fall back like, I'm gonna let that one go. And then, so then it's kind of like you lost, right? And then the next one comes around and then you're like, yeah, I can't take an L here. I just took an L because you're feeling like you're starting to fall into that spot. So it's real, right? And so now we talked a little bit, a couple podcasts ago, we talked about punk ass kids. And what I'm saying is, if you in a relationship and your son is seeing you falling back or taking all these L's, what is that telling him? Mm-hmm. So I think the imagery is important. Now, I want to say this. I want to offer this up as well, is that I think that there's a lot of females that are doing this inadvertently.
Okay.
Meaning that they have been independent or they've been running their own household for a little bit. So now they're used to taking all the roles. Mm-hmm. So now when you step in, when a dude gets connected to that relationship, now they continue to take that role. And so now the dude is like, well, what am I supposed to be doing then?
Right.
That's how I'm seeing it. So
well, you got to look at it from another perspective as well. You got a lot of single mothers out there that are raising, young black men.
That's true.
With no role models. So, and that's through obviously no fault of the the mom, but what do we do? How do we change that? How do we we need to get male role models in these young men's lives, and that's just a portion of, in my mind, what the emasculation part of it is. I mean, I see it almost everywhere now. Obviously in Hollywood and on TV, we see that in different things, but they've been doing that for years, putting us in dresses and stuff. But it's on the small, I don't want to say smaller scale, but maybe even on the more significant scale, like today. Well, we were talking about this earlier. Back in the day, it was, I guess, maybe kind of expected for the us to go out and play sports, and and it's a given. You playing sports, might get hurt. It's part of the routine. But nowadays, it's like, the new studies have come out, and brain injury and trauma, and this could happen and that could happen. I mean, so no, I don't. Little Timmy wants to play football, but mom doesn't want him to play because he might get hurt. Well, sometimes a boy needs to be a boy. He needs to roughhouse. He needs to, but mom wants him to be safe. I get it,
Mm-hmm.
but and that, to me, that's also unintentional. She just doesn't want any harm
Right.
come to her
Right.
kid. But in doing that and not letting him, it kind of stifles him. In
Now,
my opinion. In my opinion.
Mike, I want you to jump in here in
Okay.
just 1 second, but let me just sort of ask this question, because in today's society we have more and more women that are becoming the breadwinners,
Right.
right? And what we're talking about is potential conflict between the man and the woman when it comes to making important decisions. So how do we sort of counteract that? Because on one side of the coin, we have women that are really doing their thing in this society. They're rising up. They're becoming, CEOs. They're running corporations. They're doing the daggone thing.
Right.
So now they come home, and let's just say they are the breadwinner, and they just happen to be married, to a supportive man. How do you sort of counteract that in the household when you have that type of situation as it relates to the money?
I'll take that, Charles. This is Mike. I think it's about information. And what I was looking up, and what I think we've been using the longest time, is what we call social currency. A lot of people call social currency the information that they use in social media today, but social currency is an old phrase that was used. It was an old idea that it refers to the values that information, the value that information has when it's shared between two individuals. And I think when you have two people who are very strong-minded, who are doing well for themselves or whatever, to avoid that power struggle, I think those things need to be discussed earlier in the relationship before they decide to take it further. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I think communication. I mean, we hear it all the time. Communication is key, but it is. It really is. Because you don't want to have to fall back because of a compromise. You don't want to compromise too soon to make this relationship work. And unfortunately, there will be some people, or males or females, who will take advantage of each other depending on the situation. And you don't want that to happen, because sometimes that is taken as a sign of weakness, which is not. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you just want things to work out. And sometimes they're looking for confrontation, but not a negative confrontation. They're looking for just that strong confrontation to prove that you want to be here, saying you want to be here. But like you
Mm,
said,
mm.
sometimes that can be misinterpreted. You know what I mean?
Mike, I say something. Jump in here real quick. Communication. I think that's really important because obviously everyone's always talking about it, but for a dude, if he is feeling like he's in a role that he don't want to be in, he got to speak on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
what happens is, this is not, we're not here to talk about blame. This is just the facts, right?
Right.
This is what's out there.
Right.
And so if he doesn't speak on it, how does she even know?
Right.
That because she may be just transferring how she's running things at work
Right.
and just brought that home with her. And so that's not like bad. It's just she don't know. And so he keeps falling back and falling back. And inside he's starting to resent that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He's starting to feel something like, yo, this is crazy. And then the way he responds at some point just might not be the right way.
Yeah.
So that's just something I'm thinking.
No, I mean, but what you're talking about is a man being out of position. And
Know
essentially,
your role.
essentially a lot of men emasculate themselves because they allow the woman to take the lead. They take a back seat.
Yes,
They
sir.
let her run the household. They let her run everything.
Right.
And so now there are consequences to that, right? So you can't now try to step up later to take your rightful position without expecting there to be some type of conflict, because that's just, that you've allowed it to go on for so long. But I would like to know, and anyone can answer this if you're brave enough, have Has your lady ever attempted to masculate you? And if so, how did you handle it?
I can take that. I would take that one.
Go ahead.
As far as the I think it wasn't such a deep or a negative emasculation. I think that when it came to, let's say, when it came to the bills concern, I know a lot of guys. I do my own bills or whatever. I'm in charge or whatever. My wife has a minor in finance, so she was the one and for a while doing the bills, and I would sit down with her. We would go over them. But after a while, I fell back. I got lazy, and she did them. And then when it came to me, after a while, questioning different things, she got offended at one point, and we used to have conflict over this until I started to sit back down and be a part of that process, because that process was so demanding at points with, paying this, paying that, trying to get everything done. And I never sat down and was a part of the process. When I complained about something, and I get where she came from, she was like, well, if you're not going to sit down and be a part of it, then I don't think you should complain. And I was like, mother, father, you know what I mean? I had to figure it out, you know what I mean? But I understand where you're coming from. But I did feel some kind of way, you know. So I did feel some kind of way, and I went to the room, and I thought about it for a minute, and I had to give her props, and we wound up working it out. But I did feel some kind of way at one point, because it was like, damn, I have not been a part of the process, and she is correct. But I took it, for me, mentally, as a man, I took it the wrong way. Like, oh, who does she think she is? She trying, I didn't say emasculation, but I just felt that I think, like you said, when they get in that role and they're doing something, and then somebody comes along and tries to disrupt that or change it, I think people are taken back by it, and you just have to make sure that you communicate, so you don't go down the wrong path and start a situation that you don't need.
So did you resolve the issue, Mike, or is she still wearing the pants? What's up?
No. The issue has been resolved, and she is still doing the bills, brother. It's just that. Listen. I know what time it is. Listen, either she do the bills, or we're gonna be out on the street, and we're gonna be living in the dumpster. I'm not doing that.
No. I mean, on the serious note, you gotta play to your strengths. There's nothing wrong.
That's not my
strength. If she's stronger in that area, then hey,
I'm good at buying groceries. That's it. I'm good at buying groceries.
Yeah, Wayne, I'm going to you, sir. What's up?
All right, so now your question was good, right? And so I guess I'm the only dude on the panel that's single now, so maybe that has something to do with it. But anyway, in the past, I don't think that it's just like Mike gave an example of something that happened, something very specific. But I think in the past, for me, it's just been at some point you're trying to look for peace, right? And so you know when the arguments, when the challenges are coming, and so sometimes you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna fall back. But I think after you continue to fall back, then you just start it boils up. And so what I'm saying is, your question was, do you ever feel like that's happened in your relationship? Absolutely. And I think it happens a lot, and it happens, a lot of little small things.
Right.
As I said before, I don't think it's always intentional, but I think sometimes it is. Sometimes because they know you ain't going to do nothing, because in the past you didn't do nothing. So, so that's what I was going to say. So, yeah, absolutely, it's happened to me in the past.
How about you, Chuck?
It's happened, but unintentional, I believe. My wife and I are both alphas. All right. So, she's strong in her area, I'm strong in my area, and sometimes we butt heads. But we've always been able to work things out and usually negotiate out. But we have those times where somebody got to make a decision, and it's just been kind of an unwritten rule in my household that I make the final decision. And that's only because in my house we're old school. We traditional values, mother, father, God first. We just respect those traditional old school values. Now, having said that, the world's changed. That's the world has changed. We are seeing the erosion of traditional values. So the four of us, we're sitting here in a nutshell, clinging on to those old school values, but the world is changing. So, what's next, for our children's children? Um, I just, I, I don't like it. I'll be honest with you, and it's because I'm an old school dude. I like things the way they are. Now, having said that, I also embrace change. So, but I don't see too many positives in the way things are going nowadays. Now, this goes into, we've talked about all this stuff,
Uh-huh.
guys wearing skinny jeans and with the pants sagging and stuff like that. There is
Mm-hmm.
nothing masculine about that. And
Agreed.
part of my problem with that is it's not those kids' fault. Somebody's buying that stuff for them,
Mm-hmm.
their parents or whatever. They're giving into these trends and stuff like that. So who's really running that house? My son, he wants to, do some of those trends and stuff like that. Oh, I want to get my hair, I want to get dreads and all that. I said, you ain't a roster? The hell you want dreads for? Come on, son. Nah, it's not happening. Now, when you get a little older and yeah, okay, but no, you're, and somebody listening to this may say, well, that's a little, discriminating, and there's nothing wrong with dreads. You're right. There's nothing wrong with dreads, but I'm a traditional dude, and for what I understand, you know, uh, dreads are tied to Rastafari and all that, and my son doesn't know anything about that. He just wants
Right.
to emulate what he sees on TV and in these videos and stuff like that, and that's understandable at his age. But that's
Mm-hmm.
where we come in as parents to try to guide them.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I want to say, I'm sorry to cut in, but I want this, Wayne. I just want to say, I think this group here and people in our age group, we understand this. We understand this, and we know how to kind of navigate around it. I think what we need to speak on is how do we think this impacts the next generation, or our, like Chuck is talking about his son particularly, but again, the youth in general. So when you put these images out there, and it doesn't matter if it's Hollywood or in music or whatever, when you put these images out there, and it becomes accepted,
Mm-hmm.
right? Without even understanding why it's accepted, you're like, yo, that's what they're doing now. So
So
let
what do,
me
what
let
do we
me
do? We need we
let me
need
get down with it.
we need real
Right.
fathers, real men to step up in our communities, to show their face and be, counted. We need to stop putting up with the shit we see on TV. The black man is always the drug dealer. The black man is always, I'm not trying to interject race or color or anything like that, but it's usually always the black guy's always a drug dealer, and it's always, usually a Caucasian or white guy's got to come in and save the day. Um, the male figure in here can't quite get his act together. So, but his wife has to come into the picture and get him straight, because the man can never get himself straight. There's a lot of stuff, man. I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Right.
just a lot
Well,
of
I'm,
stuff.
well,
I mean, go ahead, Charles.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no. Let's talk a little bit about that, because the four of us that are on this podcast, we all have young boys.
Yeah.
Right.
So I know, Chuck, you talk high level in terms of some of the things in society that can be done to sort of counteract this trend. But for our listeners, I would like to know also, what are you doing to counteract this sort of trend as it relates to raising your sons?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, I just want to know. I mean, give me some practical things, like for example, okay, I'll talk a little bit about my household. All right,
Hmm.
to take a step back, my wife, she works for a Fortune 500 company.
Hmm.
She is a leader in her role on the job. Right, she manages people, and she just so happens to manage a bunch of men.
Hmm.
Okay, so she's used to giving orders to men
Hmm.
all day, every day, 9 to 5, right?
Hmm.
So now, she
Damn.
comes home, from work, and sometimes it's a difficult transition to go from work to the household, because you're in this mode of giving directives all day, and all of a sudden you get home and there's a different dynamic that you have to deal with. And I know in the beginning of our marriage there were times when there were conflicts, but I think it was important, and thank God for my wife, she was also open and receptive to the coaching, because I wouldn't necessarily say that I would buck up against her, but or check the behavior. I think those are too harsh in terms of the terms that I would like to utilize. But we did have discussions about, hey, we need to sort of check certain things at the door so that we can operate as a normal husband and wife should. Now, when we talk about man, when we talk about leader, when we talk about head of household, to me, these are action words. They come with responsibilities. So when a man fails to step up in his role, there are consequences. And the consequences are the emasculation of men. And so now, fast forward, I have sons in my household, and I have a wife that at times can be somewhat domineering. So there have been periods of intense fellowship where the roles have kind of got turned around a little bit. And maybe I felt a certain kind of way because I felt maybe the respect level wasn't there at certain times. So one of the things that we've done in my household is that we've, just had some, clear the room. Let's sit down in hard chairs and have some real hard discussions about what is to take place in this household, what messages we are sending, especially to our sons. So, because again, we're training them up in such a way that when they go off and they leave this household, they're no longer under our jurisdiction, under our control. They have to be able to operate a certain kind of way. They have to be able to maneuver through their relationships with females. They need to, operate as husbands eventually and fathers. And so we just need to make sure that we level set this thing and ensure that we're setting the right example. So that's the type of thing that is taking place in my household. So Chuck, talk to me about you and your son.
Oh man, my son is first of all, let me say this. That is the greatest dude. I love him. He's my right-hand man. But as a father, you have to, I don't spare the rod. I don't spoil my children. Um, thankfully, I haven't had those type of disciplinary action type of stuff with my kids. But my son and I, we have a good relationship. We talk, and that's the most important thing. If there's one good that has come out of this coronavirus and us all being trapped in the house, is you're forced to talk. And because we've been in the house, I've been able to find out some things that I've never would have found out about my son, and it's allowed us to become closer. But he's also learned some things about me and what I will and will not tolerate. My how I've come along as a young man without having that father figure in my life, my father, that is. I'm sure I've had other role models, but my father was not around. To my assurance to him that I will always be around. I mean, that's what you need, and that's what I do in my household. I talk to my son. You got some fathers that are just they kind of want to live their life through their son, and you have to communicate, and that's just the bottom line for me. That's just the way. You know what? Because I was not raised that way, meaning that I didn't have my father around to actually sit down and talk with me. I actually made the decision early on to be the exact opposite. So I've made that conscious effort and decision to be in my son's life, and that's where I am, and that's why we have. And we have our private conversations. We have our conversations that we have in the house and with mom and the family and all that. But we have our father-son conversations that nobody else is really privy to. Those conversations that need to be had with a young man with his father. So that's me. That's what we do in our house, and that's what I implore other people to do. But what works for me doesn't necessarily or may not work for everybody else, but it's worked for me thus far.
Coming from this is Mike. Coming from a standpoint of I have an older child who doesn't live with me in my current family right now, but in dealing with the emasculation, I've dealt with a lot of that when it came to going to the court for child support, which I applied for child support, but that wasn't such a thing. That wasn't a thing back then for a a person to actually go to court and apply for child support, you had to be reported by the mother of that emasculation, of course, because you taking the initiative, and they're like, no, we don't do that. You have to be reported. I'm like, that's kind of contradictive if you want someone who wants to be responsible for the child, but also um, dealing with the parent, dealing with the disgruntled individual, and and they try to deprive your spirit, your child's spirit, by talking about you, and unraveling everything that you set up. Especially if you only had that child for a short period of time. I dealt with that. Um, you pick up your child on Thursday, and by Sunday, he's starting to get it and starting to fall in line as far as how things go, and he's getting comfortable, but he has to be dropped back off, and now he has to be deprogrammed to be reprogrammed, and a part of that is that emasculation of the negative talk, and you find a lot of splitting and manipulation between the two parties, and sometimes the kids pick up that bad habit and they start splitting between the parents. Like the kid will start dictating what is said and what is done, what mommy said, or they'll get back there and daddy said, and now mommy's even more pissed off at daddy than she was before. So there's a lot of the word emasculation. I think it can go down different avenues, but I did feel that aspect of it before, and I still feel it to this day because I feel I still don't have the grasp. And when I say grasp, I mean the reach and the touch of a positive, being trying to be a positive role model. I never found it so hard to be it. Where you got a lot of guys who don't care about their son, who they are, where they are, who they're with. I care about all that, and I'm still getting roadblocks to this day. And the boy is almost 18, and that sometimes that emasculination or whatever you want to call it does come into play. But you have to be very focused, and you have to know who you are, and that love has to be there, and you got to have that support mechanism, that support team, your friends, your family that keep you focused. I'm sorry, I don't want to hold it up, but I got on the rant, but that's what I wanted to say.
No, I mean, those are great points, Mike, because we've talked a lot about how men fall into this role where we emasculate ourselves to a certain extent, right? However, we of course know that women play a huge role in the emasculating of men, especially our young boys, especially if they're single moms, etc. But I read something where it talked about 4 ways to know if a woman is emasculating a man. The number one way is that she controls him. Number two, she mothers him. Oftentimes, she gives honor and respect to her children more so than she does the man in her life.
Oh,
Number
okay.
three, she undermines or shames the man, where she's just like you mentioned, Mike. There are things that you have to deprogram because of some of the things that she's placed in the minds and the ears
Right.
of our children. And then lastly, number four, it says that she basically takes the lead in the marriage. And we talked a little bit about that, where the man is taking the back seat, in some cases at home playing video games while the wife is out there being the breadwinner. And so, if we have situations like that and these become sort of the norm of today's society, then that's basically a lot of uh, the ammunition, if you will, that has gotten us to this point in time.
Okay. That sounds good, man. That sounds good.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we talk, again, we got the too many single mothers. We have women as breadwinners, again, which is not necessarily a bad thing. We don't want to give our listeners the impression that we're against the
Right.
strengthening or
No.
the women coming up in our society.
Yeah,
But
but
what
No.
we're talking
but you know
about is
what?
the weakening of the male image.
But you know what,
Right.
Charles? We also got to let the audience know too that that happens for women also.
Hmm.
When
Yeah.
there's a form of femasculation. I'm not saying I don't want to make it mess up the word,
Yeah,
but
don't do that again. Don't do that
yeah,
again,
don't
Mike.
do it again.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
form of emasculation for women also. What I'm saying, it's a two-way
Yeah,
street. It's not always
it is.
men being emasculated. Women can be emasculated too in certain relationships. So we just want to everybody know, the males and females and ladies, whatever, that we know it's a two-way street. and it's not easy. So,
No,
like I
no, no.
said,
Let's make it even more clear. Men are assholes.
Yeah,
we are.
it can be.
Yeah, we can be. We can be. But there's a lot of good brothers out there. There's a lot of good brothers out there. But yeah, but men, they have a tendency to go overboard and try to be controlling and stuff like that. So I just want to put it out there, and I'm agreeing with Mike. Yes, we want to make sure that all of our female listeners know that we're not against you at all. Not this is just a male conversation about how we feel about certain things. So that's it.
well, I think that it just be known that I've experienced it, but
Yeah.
I've experienced it in a way where I think it's more of a compromise. But you do feel emasculated because if you feel mommy says this or my mommy said you ain't blip, or I'm like, where you learn that word from? Well, she said it.
Yeah.
And but I can't say, well, you tell that I can't say something. I can't say that because that's not my
Yeah.
DNA. That's not what I'm about. I take it and I feel inadequate some ways because I really want to express myself, but he's a young kid. I can't put all that heavy weight that he's already experiencing. So is that love or is that compromise or is that emasculation?
Well, a
Right.
real man, a strong man wouldn't go back and forth like that. So you did the right thing, brother.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, no
tough.
doubt.
It's not easy, man. I'm telling you, it's not easy.
I'm sure.
All right, well let's transition a little bit. How do we reverse this thing, or can it be reversed? I know Chuck, you talked a little bit about mentoring support and offering to be a good role model for boys that are coming up in today's society. But what else can we do in terms of solutions?
I got another one. Tell you what they took away from us is the YMCA's and the after school programs and centers and things like that. When we
The teen center. I remember the teen center back in the day. Um, I, I would say that what it boils down to, man, and it being in the environment that I'm from, as far as the correctional environment and dealing with adversity every day, you can't fight oppression with oppression. It does not work. You need to find out what the root of the problem is. You need to go to that individual, and that goes for the full household, the single parent dad, single parent mom, big mama, auntie, TT, whoever. Find out why you got these issues with the individual who you're watching their kids or who you're taking care of their kids for. Find out what that issue is and try to resolve it at the root of the problem. Don't continue to bash that person emotionally, mentally, physically. Don't do it. You're not getting anywhere. And what you do is you put yourself in a situation where now you have people who don't even know who you are dictating what you do in your life. Don't do it. Work it out.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, the thing that I would offer in terms of solutions is that we really need to change how we teach our boys. I think we need to teach them to step up. We need to teach them about perseverance, how to face adversity in today's society. We need to teach them to be trustworthy, the importance of operating with integrity, how to be leaders versus followers. We also need to teach them about courage, the importance of standing up
Right.
for their convictions, what they believe in, at the same time, how to be compassionate because we want them to operate in strength, but we don't want to produce bullies. You know
Right.
what I mean? There needs to be a balance
Right.
between those two. Self-discipline, self-control. I mean, I think if we teach these things, then maybe, just maybe, we have a shot at turning this thing around and we can put it in to, or at least put a damper, in this trend that we're seeing in terms of the emasculation of men in today's society.
One of my favorite things I say before I used to go to before I go to work was expect the unexpected, and I think that's what we need to teach our kids also. Not only be well rounded, but expect the unexpected with the way things are going in society. Because when you hold the door for someone or a young lady, and she might get upset about it, and your kid might be confused because we always tell them, listen, you hold the door for a young lady if there's the only seat in the house and you sitting in it and a young lady standing up, you give up the seat. But
That's
now
right.
the way society is, I've even seen on YouTube or something where they were showing where a young lady got offended when a gentleman got up and just said, "Here you go, miss, you can sit down." She said, "No, I'm fine." She looked at him like he was crazy. He was like, "Whoa, okay, my bad." And I felt bad for the brother because he was genuine when he did it, but the way she said it, he felt kind of bad, and he didn't even sit back down because he wasn't sure if she wanted to do it. But I just think we need to make them well-rounded, but also we need to let them expect the unexpected. There's going to be people who are going to be oppositional to, even when you do the right thing, they're going to say something opposite of that, and you just have to be available to be able to roll with it. But use it as a compromise. Don't use it as an emasculation for them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Chuck, any closing comments, sir?
I'm sorry, guys. I'm having real bad technical difficulties over here, but no, I'm gonna pass on this one, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries.
That's great.
All right. Well, we also lost Mr. Tucker earlier, and of course, Stefan couldn't be with us this evening. But that's pretty much our time with regards to Just Be a Man. We want to thank you guys for listening to the Just Be a Man podcast. Please check us out on our various social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And if you would like to hear more about what we have to say, please like, subscribe, and share. And of course, leave comments. We welcome your feedback. So until next time, we wish you peace and blessings.
Deuces.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Just Be a Man podcast. Be sure to check us out on social media, where you can subscribe to our show and/or leave a comment. We will love to receive your feedback. Also, remember to tune in next week for more meaningful discussion. Until then, we wish you peace and blessings.